Hello and welcome back to Unreal 2 The Awakening, or rather to one of the extra videos that I'm planning to make. In this video I want to cover some of the more technical aspects of the game, and as you can see, we're not going to play the game much in this episode. Now, the game itself might have been a bit mediocre, but the tools that the game actually ships with are pretty much amazing, and they are way ahead of its time. Because once again, remember that this game was developed in 2002, and it has a lot of goodies for developing your own single-player game, and so on. So I just wanted to give a brief showcase of how you can, what kind of things you can find in the game files. So let's start by going to Unreal 2 System and going through the obvious thing, which is UnrealEd. So Unreal 2, just like most of the other Unreal Engine 2 games, ships with the Unreal 2 Engine Editor, which is UnrealEd 3.0. It's fairly standard, what you would expect from an Unreal Engine 2 game. There are some changes to UnrealEd that were done in Unreal 2, and unfortunately most of them are pretty bad. Well, for one, you start in what is a particles menu. That's something that doesn't exist in other games. And from here you can add all kinds of ParticleSalamanders to whatever places you want. It's not super useful because most of these ParticleSalamanders are actually one-shot and they don't really render in the real-time view. But still, you can also load more particles if you want, or you can save your particles and whatnot, and so it can be useful. I covered the particle system of Unreal 2 in another video that I made a long time ago, so I will just refer you to that in order to learn more about the particle system in this game. Well, just as a quick reminder, the ParticleSalamander system in this game is pretty neat. It works by using concepts of forces and concepts of particles, so you define what particles there are and what forces affect these particles. It's much better than the particle system in Unreal Tournament 2003 and 2004, and it's actually very similar to the particle system used in Unreal Engine 4, which is pretty amazing and shows how this game was ahead of its time in terms of tools. But yes, so refer to that other video to learn more about the particle system, and I'll have the links in the description. So what else have been changed in UnrealEd? So for one, just like in other Unreal Engine 2 games, the music tab does absolutely nothing, so you can ignore that. Sounds works okay, groups works okay, prefabs does nothing, as usual. Static meshes shows static meshes as usual. The things that changed here are the tabs animations and meshes. In animations you get to choose things that end with G. That's a hint that animations are not actually handled by UnrealEd in Unreal 2 to begin with. So if you just select something, it's all blank and you cannot do anything. So the animations tab, completely useless. Meshes is a bit more useful. For example, well, take the Atlantis dropship with the Marshal inside, and we can actually see the models. These are animations, as you would know them from other Unreal Engine 2 games, except that, well, they don't actually play animations. Even the, say, things that are supposed to play animations, they don't actually play animations. Because once again, The animations are handled not by UnrealEd, but by another tool called Golem Editor, which I will get back to a bit later. Textures works like another Unreal Engine 2 games. Actor Classes 2 works the same way. There are a few things that are actually quite annoying about this Unreal Editor version. One is that if you want to create terrains, you would normally say add new terrain info, but you get a message not implemented yet. Looks like they used a somewhat pre-release version of the Unreal Editor, so some of the things that you would expect to be there are not actually there. So in order to create terrain, you would have to open, say, Unreal Tournament 2004 editor, create a height map and whatnot, and then copy the terrain info and paste it into Unreal 2. Or I think you could also do that with the Unreal 2 XMP editor. So yes, that's one of the unfortunate things about this editor. Another unfortunate thing is that, say if I rebuild things, it's black now, obviously, because there are no lights. If I add a light, you would expect there to be a light, but there is no light. Why? Because you need to rebuild lighting. And in fact, you sometimes need to rebuild everything for the light to actually have any effect. There is no dynamic lighting from what I know. So you can add lights, but they won't display until you rebuild everything. Quite unfortunate. That makes lighting a lot more difficult than it should be. Once again, you can create lighting in other Unreal Engine 2 editors and then just copy and paste the things. Speaking of that, you can probably also use the editor from Unreal Engine 2 Runtime. It should work just as well. So, yeah. Some of the things are unfortunate, but you can get around them anyway. Another very unfortunate thing is that if you press the three dots, which usually opens the tab in the browser. So, for example, if it's a sound, it would open the Sounds tab. If you click that, you get a crash. Always. If you click on any three dots in any part of the editor, you get a crash like that. So don't do that ever, and try not to misclick. So yeah, Unreal Editor, pretty straightforward, just like in other Unreal Engine 2 games. You can find a lot of tutorials about that everywhere on the net. But what is specific to Unreal 2 is the aforementioned Golem Editor. It's also found in Unreal 2 system, and it's called GLMED. Where is it? GLMED.exe. So this is Golem Studio. It is quite an original thing in Unreal 2, and it is dedicated entirely to animations. So first you need to open the workspace. There's the built-in Unreal 2 workspace. If you were to work on your own game, you would create a new workspace. In this case, I just want to show off what it does. So it will say, oh no, please do not edit the core files because you will probably break things. So I know that, but I just want to show things off. So you start with three windows. One says no entity, the other says entity, and the other says workspace. The workspace view shows all the things in your workspace, which is like your product. And in this case, it's Unreal 2 itself. So we have characters. Remember, this is all animations. Character animations, colonist animations, Isaac, Zarians. Player is Dalton himself. We have all the weapon animations. And here is a preview window. And this controls the preview window. So let's select something. Well, let's say Ida with gun. And here we have the model of Ida. The window is supposed to be, I think, square, but it doesn't actually retain the aspect ratio, which is quite unfortunate. But yeah, so something like that. So you can see the reference model, you can zoom in and out. The nice thing here is that if you go to Agent and you press Enable Agent Mode, you get a live preview. So, for example, the animations that Ida plays as she is idling. With inputs, you can change things that control the animations that she plays. So if I say direction is forward, she will play the walking animation. Or I can deselect that to get back to standing. Also, I can do some actions that are pre-scripted actions, for example, the hatch sequence, which is the sequence of events that Ida plays during the very first moment that we meet her aboard the Atlantis. And the same goes for pretty much all the other things in the game. So for example, if we go to a scar, can we find some scars here? Kai, Marines, Mercs, player, scientist, yeah, there we go, scar. Let's say we take a heavy green scar, right? He looks pretty awesome, actually. So one of the things you can do in Golem Editor is just preview all kinds of different models and just see what you missed during the game itself. And I'm not even sure if there were ever any green scar used in the game. I think, based on the things here, you can see that they're blue, default, gold, green, and red. The default is sort of a bit gold, but mostly metallic. So, according to that, I'm thinking that the scar were supposed to be team colored, much like an Unreal tournament, with 4 team colors. And then it was probably supposed to be used in some sort of a team game type, but it never actually made the cut. So you can find a lot of interesting things like that in Golem Editor. So, well, let's go to the gold scar, for example. So once again, we can enable agent mode to get to see this idle animations. Then, for example, we can say that we want to see how he looks when he's decking. And we get exactly that. We can combine different things. For example, we can say that we want to see how he looks when he's hurt and decking. Okay, well, not really that different. Let's say, actually, if I say duck and then I say direction forward. Yeah, that's how he looks when walking while decking. And this is interesting. We can lower the speed. This is interesting because, as far as I know, there is never an event when a scar is crouching and walking forward. I'm not sure if there is any possibility to force them to do that in the game itself. Well, there probably might be, just it was never used in the game itself. That's how they look when walking normally. And you can say that I want the speed to be run. So that's how they look when they run. And let's say I want them to go back to normal. Oh yeah, so for example, when he's hurt and walking, that's how he looks like. There's a lot of effort put into all of these animations, and it's pretty nice. So another thing we can do is, once again, call some action. And for example, one of the actions is Taunt. This is bound to several actions, so if you click that several times, you can get some different taunts played by the scar. That is pretty neat. Be careful with some of the actions. If you say, for example, to... Nice. If you say to play, for example, Death, he will die and he will not get up until you reset this. And also in processes you can see exactly what kind of animations are played. And that's the strength of the Golem Editor compared to the stock Unreal Engine 2 tools. You can have a lot of different animations playing at the same time, and this is a very nice summary of what exactly is being played. So this is cool. Another cool thing that you can find in the Golem Editor, let's see if I can actually find that, is, well, we have weapons. But weapons are a bit problematic in Golem Editor in that the way that it works is that we have weapon animations in Golem Editor, but we don't have the weapon meshes themselves in Golem Editor. The way they work is that meshes are attached from static meshes, because that's something you can do in the Golem Editor. And when you do that, you can see something in the game itself. But in the Golem Editor you cannot actually see that, which is unfortunate. But let's see, can I find something that it actually displays in the Golem Editor? GL, LG, I want MC of B. Okay. It doesn't display all that well either. But this is supposed to be the Mind Claw. That is a weapon that was not actually used in the game, and it was supposed to be a weapon dropped by the N. Once again, the N did not make the cut, but the Mind Claw did. And we have animations for firing, out-firing, reloading even, which looks pretty nice. Putting it down, selecting it up, and all kinds of other things. You can change whether it's active, loaded or unloaded. So yeah, I'll try and show how it actually looks in game with the correct rendering, because it's supposed to be something like a lot of crystals in these holder things. And yeah, I actually made a bit of a mod that brings the Mind Claw into the game itself by just copying some of the code from other weapons. Alright, well, that's some of the things that you can do in the Golem Editor, which is to view some of the animations. But the main purpose of it is to allow you to create things. So for example, if we go to characters IDA, everything is in gem files, and they are pretty much containers for animations and other things like skeletal hierarchies and whatnot. So all of these things are contained in gem files. Bone frames, I'm not entirely certain about that, but if you right click and click view description, you get a short description of what all of these things are. And some of the nice things that you can do, well, let's change this to something that could be useful. So for example, let's show the muck hog. Yeah, and if I find the muck hog here, it should be here somewhere. Marine, Kai, not a character. That's why we're not seeing that. So muck hog, Parata Hummer, where is it? There it is. So yes, we have bone frames, we have bone hierarchy, bone weighted points. It's all the things that you need to actually get a model in the Golem Editor. You import all of these automatically, I think, once you click import from 3ds file or PSK or PSA. I think this is the preferred method, because if you import a 3ds file, it will be, as it says, static and untextured. which is probably not what you really want. So yes, you have materials which you can apply. So as you can see, the Mughog has the correct textures applied. And the materials editor is very powerful too. It is pretty much a thin layer over the Direct 3D 8 system. So you have a lot of options and you can change them. Body and teeth. So, I don't know, you can change some of the things, and I don't remember how things work here. But basically, I have everything documented in a kind of a reference or help file over in the old Unreal wiki, because I actually got in contact with the creator of the Golem Studio, and he sent me a bit of information about how things were supposed to be working and what all of it means. So that's how I managed to create a help file for this. But yeah, so basically there are all kinds of different things that you can change. Oh yeah, and there are different stages, so you can have multi-layer textures by just using this editor. By changing the texture name, that's how you define which texture you use. And also that actually refers to the things in, I think, meshes, creatures, Mughog. Yeah, and we have Mughog body.dds and TGA, which you might know that they are actual textures. So yes, that refers to that. And you can change all kinds of things in here. But like I said, look at the help file that I wrote to be certain about what things do. There are entity scripts which are pretty important. And looks like in this case it's not really useful, because Mughogs apparently don't really have them. But in other cases you can have... oh yeah, that's script agent. So that's fine. You can export it, which I'm not really certain what that does. Let's take a look at that. So for example, if we open the agent file with Notepad... yeah, okay, so it's... this defines what some of the things do. Oh, and there are some different things you can do with it. Like, you can see on press 1, do things. So if I press 1, yeah, 1 is awake, 2 is go to sleep, 3 is roll over, and 1 is go back to normal again. So these are pretty cool things. You can go look at the scripts and you can export them, re-import them, and change them, and this basically changes some of the things in here. So, yeah, like direction, yeah, the mode, awake, sleep A, and sleep B, yeah. So that's basically what it does. And there are other things defined here. It's pretty nice, because it shows just how versatile Golem Editor is, though you need to take some time to actually understand what all of these things do. Entity scripts are pretty cool in that they are what allows you to attach things, for one, and another thing is that it allows you to add items and attributes. So for example, I can add an attachment, I can change the material, alpha, color, and whatnot. I can make, for example, some of these skeleton nodes to do all kinds of different things. So look at something, do some noise, oscillation, rotation on those nodes and whatnot. So, for example, if there's a head, you can use these kinds of scripts in order to change their position in terms of other things in the scene and whatnot. It's very powerful. And due to the transformation, you can also make use of things like generate a cube or a plane and apply the transformations to those and actually get something interesting out of that. So lots of different things that you can do in the Golem Editor. It's just a bit daunting at first. Like I said, look at the help, and hopefully that helps a bit if you want to learn more about that. And another thing I want to point out is that if you look at the characters, for example Ida, there's something called a lip sync curve, which is used for doing correct lip sync for the dialogue. And you can also import lip sync. Yeah, you can create a new curve, and you can import text file, which is called the lip sync animator function curve. These files are fairly specific. This was some kind of very old software that was used to create all the lip sync animations for all the Unreal 2 characters and whatnot. I made a converter that takes lip sync from the tools that were shipped with Unreal Tournament 2004 CDs. So you can use that and use my converter, which is LTF to lip, in order to convert those to the files that Unreal 2 reads. And that way you can have lip syncing in the game itself, if you want to create something really specific with this engine. So yeah, that's pretty nice too. So I guess that's a pretty brief look at the Golem Editor. Once again, lots of interesting things there. For example, Scar Glove. The Razik was supposed to be a weapon in the game as well that the Scar would drop, but once again, that didn't make the cut. So anyway, Golem Editor, nice to explore. I definitely don't want to save things. I want to close and not save. Yes. So that covers two of the things that I wanted to show off. And I guess this is a good time to break things, but I still have some more things to show off. So I'll be right